Perched on the edge of town, the United Nations peacekeepers...
Hi, Margaret.
dug into Sarajevo.
How are you doing, Margaret? Listen, we're on deadline now for a package, and luckily the news from you is good enough that we can afford...
I guess the way Margaret's shooting changed me was it forced you to think about the nature of friendship, because we weren't fast friends when this happened.
But I'm smoking your cigars. I owe you some.
When you work out on the road for CNN or anybody else, you're traveling with a lot of different people, you're constantly changing crews, and you're all friends, but it's hard to form real intimacy with anybody as friends. A lot of it's, you know, they're kind of superficial friendships. But with Margaret, I kind of learned that you are friends by definition because of what you went through. You went through the acid test together, and then the friendship and the deeper feelings grow from that.
Hi, Margaret. How you doing?
Is it? Look, I have that bullet proof.
Cool.
I was really reluctant to send Margaret back out. I was worried that, you know, she had paid her dues, and I didn't want to endanger her again. I also could just see Margaret getting shot again, getting hurt again, and all of the cries would be, why in hell did Johnson and CNN permit her to go? Well, it wasn't a permit deal. Margaret was determined to go.
You worried about her because she went through an awful lot, and you wanted to make sure she was okay.
Wow.
Which was the wrong attitude to take because she was more than okay.
Oh, wow.
You know, and she was happy to work. She just wanted to come back and work.
Sell some of our place.
So I was with Margaret in Sarajevo when she went back the first time after being shot, so it was probably a couple of years after. And I remember asking her what she would do if she met, you know, the sniper who had shot her and changed her life forever, basically.
And I said, well, I'd be more curious, I guess. I'd be curious, did he see me in the van, or did he just shoot randomly into the van? And I would not feel any anger or anything, because I feel when you're in a war zone, both sides are fighting each other. If you're on one side, you're sort of with that side, and you have to take what comes with it.
She's absolutely, you know, pragmatic, almost to the point of cold-blooded in her own assessment of her own condition. She never cuts herself any slack that way.
One of the things with Margaret's view on life, her ability to actually face things, is if you actually jumped out of an aeroplane, the vision that you get from that is quite extraordinary all by itself, because you're perfectly aware of what's going on. But of course you're also literally off the planet, and at that point in time totally responsible for your own life.
The most representative story I could tell from my perspective about Margaret was 2002. Massive Israeli invasion of the West Bank. And I was in Jerusalem with Margaret, and then we went into the West Bank, into Ramallah, because we had a feeling that the Israelis would make a big move, and they did. And then the Israelis surrounded the Makata, the headquarters of the Palestinian Authority, where Yasser Arafat was living. Israeli tanks and APCs, there were snipers, there were helicopters that fired some missiles into the place. And then just sort of coming down the street were this group of doctors, medical people from the hospital, and they were protesting the curfew, and they couldn't get supplies in and stuff like that. And they came marching down the road, and there was an Israeli armoured vehicle right at the entrance to the compound. And we thought they'd come up, they'd chant a few things, and they'd go away. No, they kept going. They walked right past the armoured vehicle and headed straight for Arafat's building. And I'm standing there with the other journalists. I'm thinking, these guys could get shot. You know, these guys, this could be a bad situation. I look around for Margaret, and I can't see her, and then I look back across, and she's right there in the middle of this group, walking across the compound. And I'm like, oh my God. So I then ran across to catch up. She was about 20 yards ahead, and I ran across it to catch up and got in with her.
Salam.
And we get to the building, and Arafat's bodyguards let us in, and we go in there, and then Arafat, who knew us, he called us up. And of course, Margaret and I just went straight for Arafat and started asking questions.
Here.
I think some people are really brave people. Some people are cowards. Most of us sort of fit somewhere in between, and I just think of myself like that.
I remember being with Margaret on Sniper Alley in Bosnia and Sarajevo, and dragging me up and down Sniper Alley getting shots, which, you know, the reason they call it Sniper Alley because they used to shoot at you. And Margaret would like run between the buildings, and I was attached on a cable to her doing sound. So when she ran, you had to run. So I had to kind of like just be ready to go when she was ready to go. And sometimes I wasn't. You'd feel the cable like tug, and you'd realize that you were running out into view of the sniper, whether you liked it or not.
And she would run like a gazelle. And I would, at the beginning, I'm like, if this 50-year-old woman can do it, so can I. And to discover, no, not.
People say, people like you have a death wish. And it used to make me so angry. I thought, don't you dare insinuate I have a death wish. I don't know anyone who's enjoyed life more or values my life more. But people think when you go to war zones, it's some sort of death wish. I was always very careful, and I never saw myself as a daredevil or someone who would be stupid about things. Sometimes if they were shooting all around, I would feel better to stay in one place where they can see that I have a camera rather than make a run for it or something where you're more likely to get shot.
Most of humanity are what I would call herd animals. She's the antithesis of a herd animal. She's a solo artist. And what distinguishes a non-herd animal as a human being is their demand of themselves that they go forward into the darkness with their eyes open, looking straight into it, as opposed to with their eyes covered, backing into it, which is what most of us as humans choose to do as a group.
Margaret particularly appreciated that we were in a very unique position at a time when there was a lot happening in the world, to be lucky enough to be sent on these stories or to manage to get on these stories.
I remember often she was telling me that how lucky we are to be doing this job, and that, you know, you couldn't go to a travel agent and just buy a ticket to be, you know, working in Bosnia or being in Baghdad and experiencing all the things that are happening there.
She's not stalling, dude. She's rocking.
It was always great to learn that Margaret was on your assignment, because you knew you were going to have a good time.
When she was on an assignment, she gave it 100%. But at the same time, I have to say, she also knew how to unwind and how to relax, and how in a war zone you can go crazy if you don't actually know how to cool down a little bit and how to have fun.
She was always good fun on the road too. It was always an interesting conversation. Often an odd conversation. You know, you'd find you'd be in a really stressful place or whatever, covering a stressful story, and you end up talking about cats.
I thought I was an animal lover until I met her. I mean, this is someone so obsessed with not making animals suffer that when we were in Petra, we were shooting this piece to camera on one of those horse-drawn wagons, and Margaret refused to sit in the wagon because she thought it would hurt the horse. I'm like, Margaret, it's what they do. Horses pull, I'm sure that actually they have more fun doing that than sitting around. No, she refused. So the whole piece to camera, and it wasn't one take, I'm telling you it was like 10 takes. She ran with the horse rather than sitting in the carriage. I was annoyed because I was like, this is taking way longer than it should, this and that. Now when I think about it, I'm like, how cool. Like someone who has that real, just absolute obsessive love for animals and having them not suffer. I think that's very admirable. She does not give a toss what anybody thinks about her. She has absolutely her own unique set of values, of what she thinks is important in life. She doesn't care about the establishment, the whole what is expected of women. I mean, she's a true pioneer.
The remarkable thing is that Margaret as a young woman is probably the same Margaret that you see today, partly because she was so certain of what life had to offer and was equipped with the intellect and wit and passion to actually pursue it and achieve what she has in her life.
I think life's sort of like a game of tennis. You have no choice about how that ball comes to you, but it's how you hit it back that counts. Two and a half years ago, I was diagnosed with cancer.
We met up in London, and we were in a pub having a pint, and she told me about what was going on. She had terminal cancer, and they didn't think that they had caught it in time, that they would do the chemo, but they didn't know how long it would work.
And also we know I have a very fast growing cancer, so we knew once it stopped growing, the cancer would grow very quickly. And when I came back at the end of February, they said that it wasn't working and the cancer had grown quite a lot.
When she and I first had a long conversation about the cancer getting the better of her and that she was going to die, she was telling me about it in a very matter-of-fact way, and I said, well, so how are you feeling? I mean, honestly, besides in the bravado, how do you feel? And she said, honestly, Steph, I'm okay with it. She said, if I had had an uneventful life, I would be in a panic right now. I'd be running out trying to learn how to parachute, learning out how to do all these things, traveling all around the world. She said, I would be in a terrible state right now if I had had a boring life. She's completely matter-of-fact about dying. She enjoyed living, and she doesn't mind dying.
I guess I would ask what's there to be afraid of. I mean, I'm not religious, so I don't believe I'm going to end up in hell, which I know I would be down there if I did believe in that sort of thing. So, I mean, I would have liked to have done that with a bit more flair, but I feel if I can die with dignity, then that's the main thing, I mean, to me, it's no different if I die in 6 weeks or in 20 years. I don't think it matters how long you live, as long as you can say that I've got everything out of life.